Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I think this is my last video for September. I think I'm right. Anyway, I think this is my last video for September, and I'm really excited to be able to end this on a brand new book review because this book, I believe, was just released. I think this came out on September 29th. It might have come out on like the 24th. I don't know. But I did get this before it was released. This is an ARC that I did receive from Tor Nightfire. I am so thankful that they sent this to me. And I had a blast reading it. This is definitely one of those books that I have seen so much hype about and heard so much about, and was definitely very much anticipated and spoken about all throughout the year. I had never heard of Catriona Ward before I saw all the hype about this book, so I didn't know what to expect when I read this, but it was definitely something. So this is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward, again released by Tor Nightfire in September of 2021. But I feel like ARCs of this book have been kind of hopping around everywhere. Like, I feel like I'm one of the last people to read this book. There's just been so much, and I do know that it was released several months earlier in the UK, so people over there were able to get their hands on it and review it way before I did. Also, please excuse my nails. I know that they are a gross hot mess, but I just didn't have time to do them today, and I just don't care. Anyhow, so yes, The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I'm going to quickly read the back of the book. Again, mine is an ARC, so the back of the book for me is going to be in this little inside flap here. And so here it goes. In a boarded up house on a dead-end street, at the edge of the wild Washington woods, lives a family of 3. A teenage girl who isn't allowed outside, not after last time. A man who drinks alone in front of his TV, trying to ignore the gaps in his memory. And a house cat who loves napping and reading the Bible. An unspeakable secret binds them together, but when a new neighbor moves in next door, what is buried out among the birch trees may come back to haunt them all. The Last House on Needless Street is an immersive and shocking journey that will keep you guessing until the last page. Even Stephen King says he hasn't read anything this excited since Gone Girl. Alright, so I'm gonna stop right there. I hated Gone Girl. I know a lot of people love Gone Girl. I hated Gone Girl. I did see the movie, and then I tried to read the book, and I didn't like the film, and then I just couldn't even get through the book. I think I gave it to my sister because I was like, I just can't do this. I liked this far more than I liked Gone Girl because I obviously didn't DNF it. This book is really hard to talk about without spoilers, and I don't want to put spoilers in this review at all because I do think I want to encourage people to read this. This was a 4-star read for me, but I will say it definitely did not start out as a 4-star read. It was definitely a solid 3, maybe even 2-star read as I was trying to piece together what was going on. This is a very interesting book. However, I will say this isn't a book that I would say is completely original. I've definitely seen this done before, and I've definitely seen this done better. The twist, okay, so let's talk about the twist. I predicted the twist. I predicted the twist very early on. I had a moment where I was explaining part of the plot to my boyfriend out loud because I was explaining what this book was. And when I started speaking about the book out loud and trying to explain like the plot so far to him, I realized like all of the flaws because I had then all of a sudden removed myself from what I was reading in the text and being immersed in the text, and I was able to figure out the twist. And it didn't necessarily ruin the book for me because there's multiple layers of twist in this novel, and one I definitely did not see coming, but the biggest, most crucial twist in this novel I did figure out, and I did figure it out quickly because the more you look at everything that's going on and the more you see what unravels and doesn't make sense when you take a step back from the book, the more it becomes very transparent as to what's going on. I've never finished the book Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk, but I've read that first like opening chapter, and this is one of those books where when you read it, you're so horrified and mortified and disturbed by what's happening in that text that you don't take a step back to be like, wait, that would never actually happen. And once you take that step back to be like, that would never actually happen, this is extremely absurd, I don't even think it could possibly happen, that story loses the effect that it had on you. And I will say that Catriona Ward does a really good job of immersing you in this book to make you believe that a lot of these things that happen would actually happen. Now, you can take this book apart and be like, ooh, this, like, fact, like, everything that happens in this novel, if you take it apart piece by piece and just dissect those pieces, you'd be like, yeah, I could totally see that happening in real life. That's very believable. However, the fact that all of these things align together to make this story basically work the way it does, to me feels so odd and absurd that I don't think that it would be capable of happening in reality. And I think that's where my issue with this novel comes through. This book definitely needs a trigger warning on it. There is a lot of talk of abuse. I do know that if you go on Goodreads and you read the summary of this book, it gives away a lot more of what's happening than the summary that I just read you. So I am just going to keep it to this because I think that it's better for you to go in more blind than it is to have more of a perspective on what's going on, because part of the fun of navigating this book is being so utterly confused while reading it. That being said, though, this book reminded me so much of I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid and Mark Danielewski's House of Leaves, for both different and similar reasons. Mental illness is a huge focal point in this novel, and it does address a type of mental illness that I've actually only ever seen really spoken about in horror media once before. Not going to tell you what it's from because it will totally give away the whole twist, because if you've seen the movie, you will figure this out immediately. So I'm not going to tell you what other horror media touches upon this, but I do think it's handled very well. I think it's handled in a very interesting and delicate way, I would say, and I think it's very crucial that you read the afterword from Catriona Ward at the very end, because it will really open your eyes to where her idea for this story came from. And I think when you have that lens, this book makes a lot more sense. I will say there are three main characters in this novel. The one I want to talk about the most is Olivia, the cat, because you do get to see a lot of what's happening in this novel through the eyes of this cat. And I think Catriona Ward does a really good job of personifying Olivia. She feels very much like what I think a cat would perceive humans as, if that makes sense. Like her analysis of like what people are doing is so funny. I love how she doesn't call humans humans, she calls them Ted, because her owner's name's Ted, so she just knows that people are like Ted. So it's like little Ted, neighbor Ted, like larger Ted. Like, it's really funny. The Olivia chapters are really insightful, really interesting, and are definitely crucial to solving the mystery of this novel. The things through Olivia's eyes are by far the most important, and just very intricately and uniquely done. I don't know. This book was hard for me. I found the twist. I did not feel good after finishing this book. I think this is the best way to handle this. I still don't have my final thoughts on this novel. That's kind of why I pushed reviewing it to the very end of the month, because I was really hoping that I would, have more things to say about how I feel about this book, but I really don't know how I feel about it. It made me feel very icky and gross and sad on the inside. There's so much abuse in this novel, and not in like a way that I would say don't read this, because it serves a purpose. It all serves a very strong purpose in the end, so it's not like abuse for shock value. It's abuse to get the core message of this story across, and I think it does it very well, but you don't feel good afterwards, and it's very isolated and it's very claustrophobic. It's also kind of sort of a murder mystery surrounding this. I'll give you a little bit of a premise. We meet our main character, Ted, who once upon a time was a potential suspect for the disappearance of a little girl by a lake. And so the book is mainly set about 10, maybe 15 years after the disappearance of this little girl. And we see the story through Ted's eyes, Olivia's eyes, and we get a little bit from the older sister of the girl who went missing, and so we kind of get her perspective on things. And those are kind of the three main narratives that we follow, and the novel very much wants you to focus on this murder mystery that we're going after, but at the same time, it's got nothing to really do with that. It's definitely far more in-depth, far more sophisticated, far more psychological and thrilling and intricate than just a standard murder mystery. I found it very, very, very claustrophobic, and I think simulating claustrophobia is one of those things that really, really scares and disturbs me in horror. Like films like The Descent really make me uncomfortable. I'm very, very, very claustrophobic. I think this book absolutely nailed the kind of claustrophobia that Catriona Ward was going for. I'm currently reading No One Gets Out Alive by Adam Neville, which literally only takes place in a house, and you can really feel the claustrophobia in that. So I have just been surrounded by claustrophobic things recently, and this book does a very, very good job at nailing that, but also a very good job of disorienting and confusing the reader at the same time. I don't know. This is so hard to talk about without spoiling it, because I could literally talk about all of the things that are revealed in this novel and tell you all of my thoughts on it and my dissections of the characters and how Catriona Ward presented certain topics and reveals, and I could definitely make this like a 35-minute video, but I'm not going to do that because I do think that the book is worth reading without anybody knowing it. I will say the big, big, big twist I find to be very tragic. I find it to be very important for us to discuss in horror. Again, like I said, there's only one other media in horror that I can think of that was very popular that talks about these types of things. And I think this handles it very, very well. And I think the afterword really expands upon that twist. And then there's another twist. There's another twist that's not quite as big as our main twist, but definitely very, very huge and very important, that to me is kind of like unnecessary. And I think I felt very dissatisfied because you read this whole story trying to figure out like the whodunit or whatnot, and when you find it out, it's just weird. It's weird. This is where I talk about like the coincidences not lining up and me being like, I really don't know if that would happen kind of thing. It's like there's too many coincidences. Like I really wish Catriona Ward had stuck with one major twist and been like, this is what I'm trying to get across. And it would have been way more receptive to the overall ending of this novel. It's just too many weird coincidences all stacked on top of each other, which therefore cheapens the main twist. And I think that, now that I'm like talking it out, I think that was my biggest issue with this book. But this book will make you uncomfortable. It will make you very confused. It will make you disoriented. It's very disturbing. It's dark. And it made me feel a lot of ways afterwards. So I do think as a horror novel, it is very effective. I will say it's definitely more of like a psychological horror than like a monster, spooky, supernatural horror kind of thing. And a lot of times I think psychological horror can be more scary than supernatural and paranormal. So I think Catriona Ward is very effective in creating an eerie atmosphere that will unnerve the reader. But I do think that once you take that step back and really look at what's happening, it all kind of falls apart because a reality in which these circumstances would all align, I don't think could ever actually exist. I do love the fact that about a third of the book is told through the eyes of a cat. I think it's very cool, and it's not annoying. I feel like that's something that if you had told me that, I would be like, ooh, this is either a really cool tactic or going to be very irritating. I do not find Olivia irritating at all. I actually find her to be the most likable character in this novel, which is saying something because there are some really weird, I don't know if I would say any character besides Olivia is likable in this novel, but there are very interesting and intriguing characters to read about in this novel. Anyway, yeah, so that is my kind of all over the place review for The Last House on Needless Street. Again, I'm trying so hard not to talk about this. Like, I remember after I read I'm thinking of ending things, like I just didn't know how to process that book without talking about all of the spoilers that were in it. Like, that book is so hard to navigate if you don't know what's going on. And I definitely felt the same. This is definitely different than I'm thinking of ending things, but definitely in that same kind of vein of disorienting, and things aren't what they seem, and you really don't understand what's going on until you get to the very, very last page. And this is a cool type of psychological fiction that seems to be, you know, really coming around and being a very prominent thing now, and I'm kind of for it. I heard that they're adapting this into a film or a TV series already. I'm really interested to see how they do that. I thought the I'm Thinking of Ending Things film was terrible. Sorry, I know some people liked it. I thought it butchered the book and the meaning of the book, but I'm very interested to see what they do with this. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. If you enjoy these videos, hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. And yeah, so sorry for sitting through this like weird rambling review. This book is so hard to talk about, so I hope if you're interested in reading something very bizarre and over the top, that this book will speak to you and you'll enjoy it, or at least get something out of it. I don't know if I enjoyed this book, but I definitely got something out of it. You know, it ended up being a 4-star read for me, so it was effective in what it was trying to do. So take that as you will, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.